Hello, and welcome to Cloaker's Education Foundation, where we provide quality content for amazing teachers and students. If you're joining us from our previous video on the Bill of Rights, welcome back. And if this is your first time, we're glad you're here. This is the U.S. Government series, and this lesson is on the legislative branch. Before we begin, don't forget to check the link in the description below for resources on TPT and a set of free guided notes to go along with this lesson. With that being said, let's dive in. In the Constitution, our government is split into three branches: the judicial branch, which the highest level being the Supreme Court; the executive branch with the chief executive, the president being the head of that; and the legislative branch. Now we will have lessons on the judicial branch and the executive branch. Those are later lessons. This is solely on the legislative branch and the split of our Congress, the bicameral structure, where we have the House of Representatives and the Senate. Now, within our government structure, there are levels. So you have the national or the federal government, that is the USA. Below that, you have the state, Florida, Kentucky, Ohio, New York, Texas. Within each state, you have the counties. So in Texas, we have Williamson County, Travis County, Bexar County, McLennan County, Coryell, Bell, hundreds of counties. And then within the county, you have local and city governments. So for example, within McLennan County, you have the city of Waco and the city government there, but they do not govern all of McLennan County. Now, the purpose of local government is to take care of the local interest. And of course, if you've been around the United States, you know that counties have quite diverse needs, and the needs of the city may be quite different than the needs of those living out in rural areas. The legislative branch, also called Congress, they are the ones who have the powers to make law, and it is a bicameral legislature, a bicameral structure. Bicameral, that is Latin, two houses. We have a House of the Senate, where we have 100 senators, 2 per state, and we have the House of Representatives, which has a total number of 435 representatives based on the population of each individual state. And so the House and the Senate meet at the Capitol building here. You can see it. It covers about 4 acres of land, started in 1793, finished in 1800, and they've been adding on to it, especially during the 1860s with the addition of many states into the Union. And that is ultimately when they put the dome on the top of it. That entire dome is made of cast iron, which is quite heavy and quite impressive. Now, in order to run and be elected as a member of the House of Representatives, you must be 25 years old, you have to be a citizen of the U.S. for at least 7 years, and a legal resident of the state where elected. The term limit is 2 years, and there's no limit on how many times a member of the House can run. Now, seats in the House are distributed based on population, and it is based off of the U.S. Census that happens every 10 years. Now, in 1929, at the height of our economy, right before the Great Depression, Congress passed the Reapportionment Act, which capped the number at 435 because, let's be honest, they were very tired of cramming in more and more chairs and desks into the Capitol building. So, looking at the map, now, as you can see on this map, right, how the U.S. House of Representatives is distributed based on population. States like Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Delaware have 1 representative. Every state is guaranteed 1 representative. Larger states like California have 52. Texas has 38. New York has 26. Now, these numbers are changing every 10 years with the new census. Now, the number of representatives has increased since the beginning and before it was capped. So in 1800, there were 106 representatives of U.S. population, about 5.3 million. which means each representative elected represented about 50,000 Americans. In 1900, at the turn of the century, there were 386 representatives, representing a total of about 197,000 Americans per representative. And so in 100 years, the number of people you represented increased 4 times. In 2020, with the last census, the U.S. population is 331 million Americans, and a House of Representatives number of 435, which means each representative represents approximately 700,000 Americans. 761,000 if we are being exact. Now, representatives are distributed out to the states based on population. So Wyoming has 1 for the entire state. Montana has 2 representatives. The states divide themselves into districts so that each district has an equal number of population. So Texas has 38 seats based on our population, and so Texas is divided into 38 different districts. In an effort to maintain political power, many states carve districts on a partisan basis. In other words, to where it will favor one party or the other. And this is known as gerrymandering. Now, I know, big debate of whether it's gerrymandering or gerrymandering. We're going to say gerrymandering because that's what the New York Times says, gerrymandering. So districts would do this. They would divide it based off of partisan basis to try and favor one party or the other. And in the 60s, it comes out that states were doing this in order to take advantage of the minority populations. And so Westbury versus Sanders makes its way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says the Constitution says congressional districts must have equal populations. The decision became known as one person, one vote. You cannot have one district where it had 500 people and another district where you had 500,000. They must have equal populations. So let's look into gerrymandering and how drawing districts differently will produce different results. And of course, this photo is from Encyclopedia Britannica, which is royalty free. Now, this district has 50 people, 60% vote for the orange party, 40% vote for the purple. If you draw it fair, you have straight down the line, 3 orange, 2 purple, orange wins. You draw it another way here, you have districts where purple is larger than orange. Each of them have equal populations, 3 orange, 2 purple, orange wins. Now, over on the right side, you could draw 5 districts where you have 5 orange and all of the purple is not the majority in any district, and so they would get 0 votes. And in the example on the far right, you can draw it in such a way that you combine as many of one party as you can for the orange party, and it comes out where you have 2 orange districts and 3 purple districts, and the purple party wins. Results are not proportionate to the electorate. That is gerrymandering. So let's look at this map. This is the congressional districts within Texas. So you have the Panhandle, you have counties out in West Texas like Brewster County, which have very low populations, right? All of them have equal populations compared to those itty bitty districts over in Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas. You can see the districts of San Antonio in that bottom left-hand corner. Bexar County has several districts. There's even a district that runs pretty much up the length of I-35, District 35 conveniently. You can see Dallas in the top right-hand corner, how Tarrant County has multiple districts, and there's a District 33 that runs literally across Fort Worth and Dallas. You can see Houston in the middle right, multiple counties around, but Harris County, one of the most densely populated counties in Texas, has quite a few districts just within that one individual county. And you can see that District 18 almost wraps around an entire part of District 29. Again, these were drawn to keep certain political parties within power of their district. So this is just, again, a magnified view. You can see the multiple counties up in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. You see the counties in San Antonio, District 20, how 35 runs up the length of I-35. You can see the counties in Houston, how they're so densely packed, those districts there. So with this massive population and the increasing number of people moving to Texas, Texas now has 38 representatives, which is an increase of 2 compared to the last census. And again, every state is guaranteed at least 1 representative, no matter how small the population. Now, the House of Representatives, the head of the House is called the Speaker of the House, and currently in 2025, Mike Johnson is the current Speaker of the House. Since congressmen are elected every 2 years, we call each 2-year period a term of Congress. They are numbered consecutively, so the 114th, 115th term, the 116th term. So for example, the 120th Congress will begin in 2027. A term is 2 years, and a session of Congress is a subunit of time, and that is the time it takes for them to finish their business for the year. So how many sessions are there in a term of Congress? 2, because each session is 2 years, and a term is 2 years. Now, they are not in session the entire year round, and that causes quite a bit of resentment from average working class Americans. Now let's talk about the Senate. Now the Senate and the House again meet within the Capitol building. It's quite a large building sitting on about 4 acres, just the first floor alone, and with each floor it's a total of about 16 acres or 16 football fields of floor space for those of us that need a visual. Now, the Senate is quite different than the House of Representatives. The Senate, each state has 2 senators, regardless of size or population. And in order to be a senator, you have to be 30 years old, a citizen for 9 years, a legal resident of the state of which you are elected in, and the term of office is 6 years with no term limit, meaning you can keep serving as long as you keep winning elections. The vice president is the head of the Senate, and we talked about that in our previous video of the Constitution. Now, the vice president cannot vote on Senate business except in the case of a tie, and only then can the vice president vote on a bill. Many times the vice president cannot be in the Senate to oversee it, and so the president pro tempore fills in for the VP and leads the Senate when the VP is not available. Now again, we're based out of Texas, and so the senators in Texas are John Cornyn on the left and Senator Ted Cruz, picture right. Comparing the House and the Senate, so senators have much longer terms, again 6 years compared to 2. The entire House is elected at once every 2 years, while only a third of the senators are up for election every 2 years. And so we see the election cycles, they're on odd years, 2025, 27, 29, a third will be up for election. And the intent was that the House of Representatives will respond to the will of the people, but senators would be a much longer, slow burn when it comes to lasting change within government. Continuing our comparison of the House and the Senate, originally congressmen were elected by the public, so the House of Representatives, they were elected by the public, and senators were chosen by the legislature, the governor and the other legislature within the state, because the framers of our Constitution, the Founding Fathers, did not trust the public with all of the power. And so this was the law of the land in the process for many years. However, it was changed with the 17th Amendment that changed senators to being directly elected from the public. Now, this means that House members, again, originally elected by the people, they are responsible for their district. They are to represent their district. So our representatives in Texas, the representative in El Paso, he is just representing El Paso. The representative for West Texas is just representing West Texas. Senators are representing the entire state. And so when we talk about constituency, who represents whom? The senators are going to represent the state. Representatives, House members, they're going to represent a district. Within the legislative branch, we have these things called off-year elections or midterm elections. And again, off-year elections is based off of the president who's elected every 4 years. And so in these off-year elections or these midterm elections, when there's no presidential election, the president's party generally loses seats in Congress when it comes to the House and the Senate. Now, why is that? Generally, if we elect a president of the purple party and then the orange party wins, that orange party president, he is riding a wave of dissatisfaction, she's riding a wave of dissatisfaction, and his party generally sweeps because everyone's fed up with the previous administration. Then after 2 years, they've had some time. There's been some flaws, some ups and some downs, and the intensity, the passion for the orange party will taper off, and generally they will lose a few seats within Congress. Our founding fathers wanted to have a House that would quickly respond to the desires of the public, the House of Representatives, where again, they're elected all at once every 2 years, and a House that would be moderate, slow, and they would put a stop to a lot of the nonsense, and that was supposed to be the Senate. The last note I want to touch on is some of the demographics of Congress, of our legislative branch. Now, this is the House and the Senate put together, and again, demographics is just the statistics of the people. 72% of the House and the Senate are male, 28% of Congress is female. 74% are classified as white, 14% black, 11% Hispanic, and 1% other. 64% of members in Congress are millionaires. Only 36% are non-millionaires. Now, this is compared to 9% of Americans who have a net worth of $1 million or more. The annual salary of a member of Congress is only $174,000, which means if they were to be elected and save every penny of their salary, they would have to serve for over 5 years, again, saving every penny to have even $1 million. Just to put that in perspective, when someone says my representatives represent me, they might do it very well, but there's a large economic distinction between members of Congress and your everyday Americans. And that wraps up our lesson. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching us. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check us out on Teachers Pay Teachers, YouTube, and Rumble. We have those linked in the descriptions for you below. And our next lesson on the executive branch, right there on the screen, is just a click away. I'll see you there.